share our videos with your friends and family. The next broadcast will start shortly. If you care about South Africa and want to make a positive difference, then join the DA. Visit our website at da.org.za for more information. Find out who represents you in your ward and district, and who are the DA mayors working for you in your town or city, and which MPs represent you and your causes in Parliament. On our website, you can learn more about our latest campaigns and how you can get involved. Join the Democratic Alliance to rescue South Africa. Become an activist, become a councillor, become a member of Parliament if you care about South Africa. Please visit donate.da.org.za. Donate to a cause you believe in. Donate to make a difference. Did you know the best run municipalities in South Africa are all governed by the DA? DA mayors are working hard to protect residents from national government failures by getting the basics right, delivering better services, and having zero tolerance for corruption. This is the DA difference. The next broadcast will start shortly. Follow us on social media for the latest in news and politics in South Africa. Like and follow our page on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything. Be part of the conversation. Tell us what you think in the comment section. And please like and share our videos with your friends and family. The next broadcast will start shortly. If you care about South Africa and want to make a positive difference, then join the DA. Visit our website at da.org.za for more information. Find out who represents you in your ward and district, and who are the DA mayors working for you in your town or city, and which MPs represent you and your causes in Parliament. On our website, you can learn more about our latest campaigns and how you can get involved. Join the Democratic Alliance to rescue South Africa. Become an activist, become a councillor, become a member of Parliament if you care about South Africa. Please visit donate.da.org.za. Donate to a cause you believe in. Donate to make a difference. Let's rescue South Africa. Join the DA, because the DA gets things done.
One, two. One, two, one, two, no. One, two, one, two. One, two. It's not, do you want to give me that? 1, 2, 1, 2, yes, there we go. Yep. 1, 2, 1, 2. No, no. Can you give me that one? 1, 2, 1, 2, yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you all hear me? The mic is technically on, but the machine connected to it may not be on. Hold on. It's not working. Yeah. We have some mic issues. Can you all hear me? Not. Let's try another one. 1, 2. Can you hear me now? Is that better? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to welcome you all to... Not... 1, 2. Stand aside. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah. Is this working better? Yes. I think the problem is we've got so much media that there's competition between the mics. So I'll stand a little bit to the side and welcome you from here. So thank you very much for coming. There really are many people here today, which is great to see. My name is Marion Edmonds, and I'm a member of the Press Club Committee and here to welcome you. Before we ask John Steenkamp to come to the podium, I need to set this... What? You can't hear anything? Sorry. I'm a bit flustered because of the mic. I will collect myself in a moment. Before we welcome John Steenkamp to come to the podium, you can't hear. Okay, can I sort out the mic issue? Is that better? Distorted. You want me to move to that side? There's not an awful lot I can do at this point, I'm afraid, other than proceed. So I think try and listen and I'll try and talk and we'll take it from there. To set the scene, I need to thank people who've made this event possible. Heineken for sponsoring the wines, the Ben and Shirley Rabinowitz Foundation for their ongoing support, Martin Hess for supporting journalist attendance, and this is the Press Club, so we are very pleased at the presence of the media here today. It's wonderful to see so many working journalists working hard. Today we also want to give, just as a footnote, a special welcome to a retired veteran journalist and a very strong supporter of the Press Club, Jonathan Hobday, who's also attending today and who we appreciate very much. Also, our great appreciation goes to the diplomatic representatives who've come here from Angola, the United Kingdom, China and France, Mauritius and the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway and Spain, Sweden and Peru and Russia. That's a fair spread of countries. I'm sure they have many questions for the Minister of Agriculture, apart from other things. Please also welcome a group of visiting students from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung who filled up 2 whole tables. I'm not sure where they are. Perhaps they can just show us. Thank you for coming. And a warm welcome to the representatives from the Friedrich Naumann Institute, as well as a table of members from the International Women's Club. And we also thank Mr. Robert Henderson from Sasfin Wealth, who has taken 2 full tables. So now on to the main course, our guest, who doesn't need much introduction, as he's been very much in the spotlight as the Minister of... Okay, I'm really sorry about that. Can you hear now? Okay, I'll talk really close to the mic. The Minister of Agriculture and leader of the Democratic Alliance as a partner of the Government of National Unity. I'm afraid this isn't working. It's not working. Is this better? Okay, all right. I'm very sorry about the sound issues. There have been quite a lot of advertisements about the speech that is going to be made. It's been described as seminal in advance. So I think there is a fair amount of expectation. Premier Alan Winde spoke to us recently about the hasty and hair-raising formation of the GNU, and especially in moments which were down to the wire. So it'll be very interesting to hear some snippets of what happened at the time of the formation of the GNU in those tense days after the elections. But we are also... Sound? We also, I think the best thing for us to do is No, I know you can't hear. I know you can't hear. I think the best thing for us to do is to sort out the sound before we go any further. Give us 5 minutes and we'll try and come back and get it sorted out. Thank you. All right, we seem to be back in business. Just to give you an explanation, it appears that some of the extra media cords put too much pressure on the system and there were gremlins. So apologies for that, but it is a sign of how significant this event is. So to where I was, we are looking forward to this so-called seminal speech. The question I think that everybody is interested in is how long will the GNU honeymoon last? The media are looking for telltale signs of fault lines, even beyond those of the NHI and budget cuts and perhaps the Bella Bella bill. But maybe Mr. Steenhuisen has got another way of looking at this marriage of necessity, convenience, and politicking, which is the GNU and still very much in development. So, John, would you like to come up to the podium with a sound system that actually is working and tell us what you have to say?
Good afternoon. Yeah, there we go. It looks all right. We'll use that one as a backup. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Marion, for that introduction. And may I extend my greetings to the members of the Press Club, the management of the Press Club, our diplomatic corps, our journalists and members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to begin by paying tribute to Praveen Gordhan, who many of you may not know, is in hospital at the moment in a very serious state of health. He has his family with him, and I'm paying tribute to his incredible bravery during the 9 wasted years of the Zuma era. Our thoughts and prayers, I think, should be with him and his family in this particularly difficult time. And certainly from my side, as the leader of the Democratic Alliance, we wish him a speedy recovery and we wish comfort to his family and friends. It's a huge honor for me to be back here at the Cape Town Press Club. The last time I spoke to you was in March, but it feels like a lifetime ago. Lenin, and that's Vladimir, not John, famously said that there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And certainly the weeks following the 24th of May, we've seen huge changes in us. South Africa has changed. There is renewed hope, a sense of optimism, light at the end of the tunnel. Sorry, someone's phone dropped. Oh, it's mine. There we go. Don't worry, journalists, it's not yours, it's mine. It's not you, it's me. And so we've seen this sense of renewed hope, sense of optimism, and light at the end of the tunnel. But the reality is that our future is not yet secure as a country. And much now depends on the government of national unity. If it succeeds, South Africa succeeds. But if it fails, frankly, everything is imperiled. Our economy, our security, and indeed our constitution itself. So I want to set out for you today, if I may, the DA's approach to the government of national unity. I want to explain as clearly as I can why we're in it, what our policy priorities are, and the approach that we're going to take to the ANC in government. So let's start at the beginning. Why are we in the government of national unity? The reality is that 30 years into our democracy, South Africa is in a state of deep crisis. And in the wake of the historic election, South Africa needed a government to be able to chart a way forward out of the crisis. We have normalized so much tragedy over the last 30 years, but we mustn't forget that South Africa's situation is not normal. We have the highest unemployment rate in the world outside of a war zone. For almost 10 years, our population has grown faster than our economy, which means that South Africans have been getting poorer and poorer. And as a consequence, millions of South Africans are trapped in poverty with no serious prospect of escaping it. And the state coffers are running dry. But we cannot get further into debt, as the skyrocketing debt servicing costs will mean we face economic collapse, heightened borrowing costs, the defunding of basic services, collapsed infrastructure, and all the grim effects that these have on the lives of ordinary South Africans. Meanwhile, 27,000 of our fellow citizens are murdered every year. Our kids cannot read for meaning, and people who could be saved die unnecessarily in public hospitals. I won't go on, but I really could. I do, however, want to make this point. It is not normal, it is not acceptable, and it is a disgrace. So the first reason that we entered the government of national unity is that our country required it of us. How could we justify turning our backs on South Africa and our citizens when they needed us most in their hour of need, and when the opportunity to make a positive contribution was presented to us? The second reason for entering the government of national unity is just as compelling, and that is that the alternative for South Africa was frankly too ghastly to even begin to contemplate. And I'd like to remind you what I said from this very podium when I addressed the press club a lifetime ago in March this year before the election. And I quote, "If the RET faction of the ANC, EFF, and MK and their small party proxies find their way to come together, South Africa will face an existential crisis. If that doomsday scenario comes to pass, there's every reason to be concerned that the 2024 election could be South Africa's last free and fair election." This is the binary that we face in the election. On the one hand, there's the DA that's working hard to become the strong anchor party at the heart of a new multi-party government to rescue South Africa. And on the other hand is the doomsday coalition, composed of state capture rogues, VBS looters, and RET factionalists. The side that wins will determine whether our country embarks upon a fundamentally better path or whether it accelerates down the road to ruin, unquote. And indeed, throughout that entire election campaign, I made it abundantly clear that while no one could predict the outcome of the election, the DA would do everything in our power to prevent the doomsday scenario by keeping the EFF and MK out of power. And I think it would have been a special kind of treason to simply sit back and hand the country over to the people who would destroy it, the breakers on the other side. And we simply could not do that. And if one looks at who has now arrived in Parliament on those benches, the MK party list and the EFF party list of what sits in the parliamentary benches reads like the appendix to the Zondo Commission. All the names are there. Hlophe, Montana, Moyani, the very people who were the architects of state capture, the very people who plunged our country into crisis, are there salivating at the prospect of getting their hands back on the levers of power, not in any public interest, not for any public good, but so that the looting and the state capture and the abuse of power could continue unabated. And so we had to do something. Sitting on our hands was not an option. But now that we're in government, our responsibility is to now meet the challenge of the hour and to help turn South Africa around. But the reality is that the DA in government cannot fix everything. For a start, we have just 22% of the seats in Parliament. And even if we had an outright majority of our own, South Africa is in such dire straits that any government would need to focus on a few small critical priorities to get right over the next 5 years. And so we have made a very clear strategic choice. Our single priority is economic growth and job creation. Growth and jobs. I'll say it again. Growth and jobs. Because the economy is the engine that pulls the whole train forward, if it does not get going, then nothing else will in South Africa. And so 5 years from now, we will have to judge our time in government on two very simple metrics. Is growth up and is unemployment down? Now let me be very clear. I and my party are not going to allow anything to get in the way of ensuring that growth goes up and unemployment comes down. And if that means causing a bit of distress within the GNU, well, so be it. The people of South Africa and their interests are far more important than the feelings of politicians. And right now, we do not have a grip on the economic situation with the urgency that it requires. The disjointed processes on government lumber on ineffectually, while our cities and our country's situations cry out for immediate action. We have no time or luxury, given the 5-year lifespan of a government, to sit back for another few months and years of analysis paralysis, dialogues, trying to work out what the problems are. We know what the problems are in South Africa. It's now time to get down to fixing them and getting things done. The time for talking has to come to an end, and the time for doing has to start. It reminded me, and I shared it with some colleagues yesterday evening, that great quote by the World War II General George S. Patton, very effective World War II general and someone well-versed in leading from the front and getting things done, who said, "A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan executed next week." And so we have a good plan in the medium-term development plan, and I will talk about that just now. It's now time for us to get out there and implement. No more talk about reform. The time for reform is here. No more talk about fiscal discipline. The time for fiscal discipline is here. Because if we do not get it right over these next 5 years, if we do not get the economy growing, if we do not end grinding poverty in our country for more South African citizens, And if we do not get more South African citizens into growth, and if we do not strengthen our institutions, we will in 2029 be handing the keys to the union buildings over to the breakers that sit on the other side of us in Parliament. And so we must not be under any illusion. We are standing on a burning platform in South Africa, and this Government of National Unity has but 5 years to make sure that it gets things done so that we can go back to the country in 2029 with tangible results of people in work, an economy that's growing again, and a government that is capable and partnered in the private sector to ensure success. But we must not be under any illusion about the state of the fiscal crisis that we are facing. Over the past 10 years, we've squandered R500 billion just on bailing out failing state-owned entities. And now revenues are falling far short of projections, and we've used up a large part of our reserves already. And so we confront a situation where it may be impossible to keep paying for all of our teachers. It may be impossible to save the post office. And the list of things it may be impossible to continue funding will grow longer. And to make matters worse, growth is anemic. We registered just 0.4% in the last quarter after 10 years of real term per capita GDP contraction. And while we've made good strides to boost growth via Operation Vulindlela, the truth is it is not enough, and it is certainly not fast enough. We need to be bolder, we need to be braver, and we need to be far more ambitious. We do not have a moment to lose. So my colleague in the Treasury, Deputy Minister Ashwin Sarupin, and his colleague in the DTIC, Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield, have worked up a clear set of immediate actions the government can take to bring spending down and increase confidence to lower the cost of borrowing. And we'll be taking these processes and proposals into the medium-term development plan formulation over the next month and sharing them with the President and the Minister of Finance. And together, we hope to work out the way forward. Some of the urgent actions to contain spending include a comprehensive spending, bottom-up spending review across government to get rid of duplication and stop spending money on programs that are not delivering measurable value. The conversion of the SRD grant into a permanent job seekers grant. The containment of the public sector wage growth to CPI levels. Some of the urgent actions we want to take to increase confidence and bring down the cost of borrowing include setting deadlines, real-time deadlines, for the restructuring of ports, logistics and freight rail, and moving ahead with the concessioning of the Cape Town port. We do not accept statements recently made by those in charge of that port that they can go it alone and that they can drive the change process themselves. We need the intervention, and we need to bring in private sector expertise to improve the capacity there and to be able to get that port functioning. It is an incredibly important port for my department, as well as large numbers of citrus products from this province go out from there to our markets around the world. If those ports do not work, we cannot get our products to market. It affects the situation around jobs back at farm level. We also need to bring in private sector expertise at the Competition Commission. Mergers and acquisitions approvals are taking upwards of 24 months. The Commission's performance plan requires them to do it in 12 months, but we must be alive to the fact that our competitors in other countries are achieving the same in 4 months. We need to take up the World Bank's offer of a regulatory impact assessment. They have offered to do it for free, and it would free up businesses to invest, grow, and employ. We're also suggesting that SARS immediately places customs officials inside every single cigarette manufacturing facility for the monitoring of production. Now, this proved enormously successful in 2019. National Treasury data showed that placing customs officials in managing and manufacturing sites for 3 months resulted in an extra 1 billion cigarettes being declared to SARS and an extra 900 million rand of excise being paid. That's money that is there. We need to go out there and get it. We also need to establish an immediate review of all the master plans to determine their performance against actual objectives and whether they are creating excessive constraints on productivity and adding to friction costs, and where possible amendments need to be made to ensure that they stimulate rapid growth that contributes to fiscal stability. All of these measures, we believe, would show investors and lenders that we are serious about growth. I think that the uptick in our economic outlook and prospects, the improvement of the currency, and the general sense of investor confidence that we see currently is as a result of sentiment. I think there's some good sentiment out there about South Africa. People are excited about the prospects for the country again. And I described it to somebody a little bit earlier as a puff of wind in the sails of the ship of South Africa. But that puff of wind isn't going to get us to the destination that we want to be. What we need to do is to have real reforms, a real plan on the table, and a real indicator to journalists and investors and the sentiment watchers that this government is now serious about growing the economy, is serious about reforms, and is not just talking about them, it is doing them. And I've no doubt that the winds of that would fill out those sails and help us to get to our destination far quicker. But short-term measures to drive up confidence are not enough, and longer-term reforms are critical. And that is why in government we've taken a choice to view every ministry and every deputy ministry that we have responsibility for through the prism of growth and jobs. And so, for example, in agriculture, we're working to enhance biosecurity. And I've just been part of a successful delegation to China with the president as part of our work to rapidly open up new markets for our farmers' products so that we can create thousands of new jobs in our rural communities here. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber, who I believe was a recent guest of yours, is transforming that much maligned department by positioning it as an economic enabler. And I'm sure he told you that research shows that attracting more skills and tourism to South Africa can add up to 1.5% to our annual economic growth and create hundreds of thousands of new jobs. Minister Dean McPherson is working in public works and infrastructure, seeking to turn South Africa into a construction site, because we understand that infrastructure investment will serve as a catalyst to create jobs and grow the economy. Minister Solly Malatsi is driving ahead on auctioning the spectrum and getting investment into this job-rich sector. Minister Deon George is focusing on the just energy transition and the green economy with the potential to unlock new kinds of jobs. Minister Siviwe Gahube is committed to protecting funding for teachers, getting kids tested for numeracy and literacy in grades 3, 6, and 9, and maximizing quality teaching time in classrooms. Similarly, our deputy ministers in trade and industry, finance, higher education, water and sanitation, and small business development are working every day to orient those departments towards creating jobs and growing the economy. And there can be absolutely no doubt that economic sentiment has taken a very positive turn because of the work that the DA is already doing in the government of national unity. But we now need to move from increased confidence to actual measurable economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I now want to move to an explanation of the DA's approach to relations with the ANC inside the GNU. And I want to be very, very clear about something. With 22% of the vote, the DA cannot get everything it wants inside the government. It would be undemocratic if we were to do so. So I want our supporters, old and new, to understand and accept that that is how democracy works and that is how coalitions work. Having said that, we will equally not accept a position in which we get none of our priorities implemented. Because frankly, that too is undemocratic, and that too is not how coalitions should work. The reality is, whatever way you slice and dice it, whatever way you want to cut the pie, the DA holds the balance of power in the Government of National Unity. Without the DA's support in Parliament, the GNU does not have a majority. So, fair is fair. We can't get it all our own way, but equally so, the ANC can't get it all their own way. And our first instinct inside the GNU, an approach to managing matters inside the GNU, will always be to find common interest and common ground in order to put South Africa first. And we've already proven that, and we're working hand in hand with the ANC on every initiative that seeks to grow the economy, create jobs, and drive our country forward. And there's a long list of overlapping policies we have agreed on. And when the medium-term development plan comes out, which has been the subject of the Cabinet Lekgotla, which we believe is a very, very good meshing of the manifestos of the variety of parties, which is going to be the blueprint for the next 5 years towards 2029, large numbers of DA issues are represented there. Issues that the ANC have put on the table that we agree with are represented there. Some of the issues from some of the smaller parties with which we also agree are represented there. And we will take hands and work very hard to make sure that that medium-term development plan, when it's unveiled later this year, becomes the key document that guides us forward over the next 5 years, urges us on, but also against which we can be measured and held accountable as a government as we work to achieving those key goals in the medium-term development plan. But I want to also be clear that what we will not do is to shy away from conflict when we are confronted with serious and lasting damage to our country or its constitution or the things that underpin our democracy. And so, for example, we do not believe that the President should sign the Bella Bill into law tomorrow. Among other issues, we believe the bill compromises the rights of children to mother tongue education. And that's why I met the President on Bella yesterday, and I really hope that we can find a common way forward. But if the President does go ahead tomorrow and sign the Bella Bill, we will have to consider all of our options on the way forward. In a multi-party government, leaders need to respect the constraints and imperatives of their partners. And any leader that tries to ride roughshod over their other partners will pay a price, because their time will come when the shoe is on the other foot, and they will need the understanding of those partners in turn. That is how coalitions work. But this also applies to NHI. And our first instinct is to find solutions to the aspects of the NHI plan that we believe will do lasting damage to South Africa and our ability to deliver healthcare to all. If we can find those solutions collaboratively, we will be delighted. If we can't, we will pursue the interests of South Africa and South Africans' people through every other legal means at our disposal. It is important that we find common ground on this matter, particularly given the fact that the common goal is surely universal access to basic health care for every South African, regardless of their income status. It's what we want, it's what many in the private sector want, and it's certainly what any patriotic South African would want. But does it have to come at the expense of the destruction of choice? Does it have to come at the expense of the destruction of the private medical sector in South Africa, which is world-leading in many aspects? Or can we also find a model like we're doing with Operation Vulindlela, like we're finding with rail, like we're finding in so many other aspects, where we can harness the partnership of the private sector to bolster and improve the public sector? And that's the compromise I believe we should be looking to find. We can spend the next 10 years slugging it out in the Constitutional Court, clause by clause on the NHI. Will that move us any closer to universal access to basic health care, improved hospitals, and a better quality of care for all South Africans at the access points that they access public health care? No, it won't. And so surely the shorter path to achieving what we all want is to find that compromise and to work together in partnership and in a collaborative way that ensures that we achieve the common objective that we all want. And I think it is important, particularly in this new environment that we find ourselves in, and the new era of coalition politics, that conflict over policy in a multi-party government like the GNU is normal and indeed is necessary in a democracy. It happens in coalitions the world over. It's not unique to South Africa, and it is a feature of coalitions, particularly in coalitions as large as the Government of National Unity is. And it is also, importantly, not an existential threat to the government. Let me say again, to be clear, conflict over policy in the GNU is not necessarily an existential threat to the government. But that doesn't mean that we would not walk away under any circumstances. I set it out earlier in the speech that the bottom line for the DA is that the economy grows and it creates jobs. If the GNU cannot or won't do that, then there's frankly no point being part of it. Indeed, if the ANC insists on taking down the country down the path to economic ruin, it would be our patriotic duty to leave the government and to use our position in Parliament then, our 22%, to stop the slide into catastrophe. Similarly, if the ANC sought to compromise the Constitution, undermine the independence of key institutions like the Reserve Bank, or do away with private property rights, we will have no part in it. The DA can never in good conscience be party to any assault on the Constitution. And so, the DA will not crash the government unless the government is crashing the economy or trashing the Constitution. To summarize, first, we seek common ground. Next, we engage in constructive conflict towards finding compromise. Finally, we walk away where there is lasting damage being done to the economy or the Constitution. And I hope that is clear. Not every single dispute within the GNU needs to be met with headlines, GNU on the brink of failing, or GNU, will it last? There will be conflict. There will be differences of policy. There are 10 different parties with very different philosophies within the GNU, and expecting them to agree on absolutely everything all of the time is an unrealistic expectation. So we mustn't catastrophize conflicts that may occur within the GNU. Indeed, many of these conflicts occur even when one party is in power. And ironically, as I said to John Mattison a little bit earlier, I believe the president is now actually in a much stronger position to drive a reform agenda with the GNU than he necessarily would have been with his party having its own majority in Parliament. And I think we are going to see a far more rapid implementation of the reforms that are required in South Africa by President Ramaphosa having now a team of people around him who are absolutely committed to ensuring that we drive the reform agenda, we get the economy working, we create jobs, and we fight poverty. And he has no better ally in this fight than the Democratic Alliance. In conclusion, and to those who want more of what the DA is doing in the GNU, I have a simple message. With more votes, we can do more. Within our council, within our metros, our provinces, or nationally, the DA can only do more with your support. So strengthen our hand, and together we can strengthen the country. Thank you very much.
I am a mother. I am a father. I'm a daughter. I am a son. I believe in freedom. freedom to earn a living, go where I want, love who I want, say what I believe, and pursue my dreams. I am brave. I am a provider. I believe in fairness. A fairness where our achievements are determined by our choices and hard work. I am a leader. I believe in opportunity. A nation where opportunity is plentiful and everyone's rights are protected. I believe in diversity. Every person has a unique perspective and an important role to play in building our nation. We do not judge each other by how we look, but by who we are. We are South Africans working together. We are the Democratic Alliance.
Thanks for watching. All across our beautiful country, people are joining forces to elect the new government.